Weirdly enough, my brothers and I all had PCs when we were growing up. And we stole our mother's dining room table.
Something seismic is stirring in the Warhammer community, and at the epicenter stands Henry Cavill. He's the actor who once shared stories of painting tiny miniatures between film shoots, the man who freely admits to spending childhood afternoons immersed in the lore of battle-hardened space marines, Xeno's threats, and the Emperor's relentless crusade. Now, a swirl of behind-the-scenes whispers suggests that the long-anticipated live-action Warhammer project, helmed by Amazon, might be straying from the brutal Gothic roots that endeared it to die-hard fans. Whether it's a wave of studio-driven modernization or an attempt to lure in a broader audience, something doesn't quite feel right. The real question is, will Henry Cavill, famous for his insistence on honoring source material, be forced to walk away if those rumors prove true? From an early age, Cavill made it known that Warhammer was more than just another franchise to him. He isn't a celebrity figure who discovered the hobby for a quick media boost. Instead, he's that kid who spent his allowance on paint, brushes, and thick rulebooks, devouring every codex update as if it were a lost prophecy. Once he grew up, that passion only intensified. While filming major blockbusters or TV series, he'd find time to engage in endless debates about army compositions, point balances, or the significance of lore-based details. Interviews and convention panels revealed a side of him that fans adore. A man unafraid to discuss the minute differences between Adeptus Astartes chapters or the nuanced internal conflicts among the Imperial factions.
You know what? It was a bit of a hangover from strongmen from 20s or something, and I thought that actually it had potential to work. I mean, maybe not exactly those ones.
Right.
But
admittedly, his hips are wider than his shoulders. But I kind of miss the grandma panties on Superman.
You know what? I really loved my suit. I thought it was pretty cool. However, if it were to happen again, I would definitely be open to the idea of adding the trunks in some way, shape, or form.
This same devotion once reassured Warhammer loyalists that if Cavill was involved, their cherished universe might finally get the kind of on-screen representation worthy of its 40-year legacy. Yet, despite the initial wave of enthusiasm, Hollywood's track record with beloved IPs has grown increasingly checkered. Amazon itself became a lightning rod of criticism over the Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time, both of which faced a barrage of complaints about lore departures. While some viewers welcomed those reinventions, longtime devotees of the source material lamented what they saw as blatant disregard for established canon. So, when Amazon acquired the rights to Warhammer, fans found themselves torn between excitement and dread. On one hand, the streaming giant commands vast resources and offers the potential for a sprawling, big-budget adaptation. On the other, it has a history of modernizing classics in ways that can spark outrage. Those anxieties only ballooned when rumors surfaced that Amazon wanted to broaden Warhammer's appeal by introducing dramatic lore changes. Suddenly, the steadfast gloom and moral ambiguity that define Warhammer's grim-dark universe felt threatened. One rumor, in particular, ignited a firestorm: the supposed introduction or retcon of female Adeptus Custodes. Historically, the Custodes were presented as the Emperor's genetically enhanced personal guards, handcrafted to near perfection from his own unique genetic blueprint. For decades, Warhammer novels, codices, and official statements underscored that these towering, elite warriors were exclusively male in nature. That changed almost overnight when Games Workshop insisted that female Custodes had always been around. Disbelief rattled the community like a thunderhammer to the chest. Some fans rallied in support, arguing that Warhammer's universe is vast enough for countless possibilities. Others cried foul, declaring this a transparent attempt to placate modern audiences at the expense of established history. Accusations of gaslighting flew across forums. More than a few insisted that Games Workshop was rewriting the fundamentals to appease Amazon. It was as if a cherished piece of cultural mythos had been unceremoniously yanked out and replaced, leaving a swirl of confusion and indignation in its wake. Social media descended into a frenzy.
It's all down to the filmmaker, really. I mean, how he or she shoots me and how, I interact with the castmates. You can look any way you want, but your director will make you look however he wants you to look. And that's what it's really down to. And then the audience will perceive you a certain way.
Hashtags trended. Calls for boycotts echoed through Warhammer Reddit threads, and passionate YouTube commentators posted lengthy breakdowns. analyzing every discrepancy between the new claims and old canon. On the flip side, other voices championed the decision, noting that Warhammer has always teetered on the edge of constant evolution, and that partial changes or expansions to the lore shouldn't be shocking. But from a broader perspective, many fans believe the real tension wasn't simply about the existence of female Custodes. Rather, it was about the abrupt, seemingly forced revelation and the corporate meddling that may have prompted it. Much like Netflix's reimagining of The Witcher, the edition felt suspiciously like a top-down directive rather than an organic narrative progression. Inevitably, discussions circled back to one looming figure, Henry Cavill. Would he condone such a shift? To understand the stakes, it's vital to recall Cavill's turbulent time on The Witcher. Eager to portray Geralt as Andrzej Sapkowski's novels intended, Cavill repeatedly campaigned behind the scenes for a faithful adaptation. When showrunners deviated from the books, rumors swirled that Cavill objected, sometimes vocally. Tensions reached a breaking point during Season 3. Although official statements were gracious, pointing to schedule issues and other professional commitments, word slipped out that creative differences had escalated. Cavill's exit left fans of The Witcher divided and disheartened. Some believed Netflix's show wouldn't recover. Others argued that Cavill's departure merely cleared the way for new creative directions. But if one thing was clear, it was that Cavill sets a personal line in the sand where fidelity to the source material comes first. Now, with Warhammer, he seems poised to defend another universe he's cherished since childhood. For longtime Warhammer fans, Cavill embodied a protector who could stand against meddling executives. Early interviews indicated he wanted to ensure that the adaptation captured the full weight and hopelessness of the 40K universe. He spoke reverently about the Imperium's brutality, the chaos that forever lurked at the edges of space, and the moral complexity that makes Warhammer so distinct from other science fantasy settings. Insiders claim that from the moment Amazon's rumored changes emerged, Cavill was uneasy. Yet, the tension may extend far beyond just the Custodes question. There are whispers of bigger rewrites in the works, including a possible re-examination of certain factions' entire histories to fit more contemporary storytelling tropes. If those rumors are credible, the conflict between Cavill's reverence for Warhammer's enduring canon and Amazon's drive for broader appeal could become irreconcilable. Forum posts, tweets, and even subreddits dedicated to Warhammer have buzzed with speculation.
We had it scheduled for 4 days, but ended up shooting for 4 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. It's the problem with working with perfectionists like McHugh and Tom Cruise is that if it's not right, you just keep on shooting.
So you spent a whole month in a bathroom?
Yeah. With 2 guys on camera.
Yeah. May I ask, who is the actor who's beating you guys up in it? Because he is awesome.
He is amazing, isn't he?
Yes.
That guy is Liang Yang.
I see.
And he was a member of Eastwood Action Stunts.
That Cavill is ready to walk if the core essence of the setting isn't respected. Contractually, of course, leaving might not be straightforward. Some suggest that he's locked into a multi-year deal with numerous stipulations, and that bowing out would entail hefty financial penalties. Others believe that if the tension escalates to the level reached on The Witcher, Cavill might accept those costs to preserve his integrity and brand image as a true fan. Fans themselves are polarized. One camp says Warhammer can't afford to lose Cavill's star power, while another insists that his potential departure would be a moral victory, a demonstration that Warhammer's authenticity still matters more than any big-budget spectacle. Either way, it would be an earth-shaking blow to lose the person who arguably lent the show its best chance at capturing Warhammer's grim intensity. At its core, this battle reflects an ongoing debate about Hollywood's relationship with established franchises. Marvel and Star Wars expansions have faced scorn when they've prioritized quantity over quality or diverged too drastically from fan expectations. Even The Lord of the Rings, once deemed unadaptable, faced a wave of controversy after major changes were introduced in the Rings of Power. The studios, meanwhile, argue that these properties must evolve to stay relevant. They present each new adaptation as a fresh perspective, or a reflection of modern sensibilities. But the more these changes accumulate, the more fans question whether the studios behind them even like the properties they're adapting, or merely see them as vehicles to drive streaming numbers. Warhammer, in particular, thrives on its unrelenting tone, its moral ambiguities, and its sometimes shocking subtext that spares no faction from scrutiny. Sacrificing those facets could transform Warhammer into just another streamlined, mass-market sci-fi universe, losing the very elements that made it unique. All of these developments have left fans on a knife's edge, each new whisper or leak stoking further anxiety. Few topics spark more intense debate in Warhammer circles than messing with fundamental lore. It's akin to telling die-hard Tolkien readers that Middle-earth was always meant to have a completely different set of races. When the female Custodes appeared, it felt like a watershed moment, proof that major transformations might be coming. Now, the fear is that Amazon will treat Warhammer as a malleable canvas, ignoring 40 years' worth of meticulously built world building. For every outraged fan, though, there's another who insists on giving the adaptation a fair chance. They argue that the Warhammer universe is enormous, with multiple storylines open to interpretation.
Yeah, for the movie, but generally, sort of off movies, I tend to be off season, and
But do you gain weight back?
yeah, I put weight on and then lose it again before we start shooting.
Because when you go on the diet of Superman, what does Superman eat?
He eats a lot of things.
Well, name one.
I mean, okay, it depends. If I'm mass building, then I'll eat burgers and stuff.
In a cinematic medium, changes are inevitable. Yet even those more open-minded fans worry that the tone or grimness of Warhammer might be diluted if studios chase superficial inclusivity checkboxes without grounding them in a coherent narrative. Amidst all this, Henry Cavill remains a symbolic champion for the older guard. He has the star power to command attention in boardrooms. He also has the mainstream visibility to shine a spotlight on Warhammer, bringing in new fans who might otherwise have found the setting too obscure or intimidating. The question is how much creative control he truly wields. If his requests clash with executive mandates to lighten up the gloom or inject more mainstream-friendly heroes, can he push back effectively? Given his precedent with The Witcher, fans believe he'll fight to keep Warhammer authentic, if only because it's a universe he's adored since childhood. But even the biggest star can face an uphill battle against a massive corporation's marketing strategies, and fans can't help but recall how swiftly The Witcher parted ways with its lead despite his fervent devotion. Many watchers see a deeper cultural saga playing out, the unstoppable momentum of streaming giants determined to capture every corner of geek culture, colliding with dedicated fandoms that have grown weary of their cherished worlds being updated beyond recognition. Warhammer, with its famously intense fans, might become the prime example of that friction. Is this adaptation poised to become a shining testament to how beloved franchises can transition to live action with their souls intact? Or will it join the list of cautionary tales that includes The Witcher's meltdown, The Rings of Power's polarizing debut, and a string of other high-profile adaptations that promised the moon but delivered a muddled imitation of greatness? Right now, speculation abounds, but official confirmations are scarce, leaving fans to fill in the blanks themselves. Every rumor about Henry Cavill's discontent spreads like wildfire, fueling countless theories about potential replacements or about Amazon's willingness to pivot if backlash intensifies. It's a game of corporate chess unfolding in real time, with fans cheering from the sidelines, hoping Cavill can hold the line on Warhammer's integrity. Will Amazon risk the inevitable PR nightmare and continue down a path that might alienate longtime Warhammer devotees? Or could the streaming titan surprise everyone by acknowledging the community's concerns and steering the adaptation back toward the grim darkness that's defined Warhammer for so long?
Weirdly enough, my brothers and I all had PCs when we were growing up. And we stole our mother's dining room table, which she's still unhappy about. And we just put all our PCs on there and connected them by a cable and play games that way.
To play games?
Yeah.
But this is really old-fashioned. This is like a game with no computer engineering whatsoever.
Yeah, you actually have to hang out with real people.
You have to hang out with people.
Yeah.
And then is it like Dungeons & Dragons where you roll dice?
Ultimately, Henry Cavill's rumored standoff with Amazon isn't just about one actor's preference for accurate lore. It's a microcosm of a broader clash between large-scale studios driven by algorithms and marketing data and fandoms that crave continuity and faithfulness. Warhammer fans pride themselves on decades of dedication to a universe that celebrates the extremes of science fantasy. They love the bleakness, the unending war, and the moral quagmire that spares no character from damnation. Any attempt to soften those edges risks losing what made Warhammer iconic. In that sense, Cavill's rumored stance feels like a kind of guardianship, a vow to ensure that if Warhammer is coming to the screen, it won't be repackaged into something it was never meant to be. Whether Henry Cavill triumphs in this behind-the-scenes dispute or ultimately decides he can't support a direction that undermines the soul of Warhammer, fans around the globe will be watching with bated breath. After all, losing him would create a crisis of faith for everyone who hoped that finally, at long last, Warhammer was landing in the hands of someone who genuinely understood its essence. On the other hand, if the adaptation manages to strike the right balance, it could become a modern classic that draws in new audiences without compromising the grimdark legacy. For now, speculation reigns, and social media is alight with every rumor, reaction, and tidbit of news that trickles out. Wherever the dice may fall, one thing is certain: Warhammer fans won't go down quietly. They'll keep voicing their objections, launching petitions, or praising any sign that the lore remains intact. It's a testament to how deeply people care about this fictional universe, investing time and money into building armies, reading novels, and discussing every nuance. Henry Cavill's deep personal connection to Warhammer epitomizes that passion, and that's why his stance matters. As we wait to see whether he can protect the grim darkness of the far future from the relentless push of modern Hollywood, the rest of us can only watch, speculate, and brace ourselves for whatever comes next. Will this be Warhammer's renaissance, or the beginning of its downfall? Let us know what you think in the comments. Stay tuned for further updates, and remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, loyalty to the lore may be the only thing that stands between a cherished universe and oblivion.